Hello! This lesson 8 is dedicated to knowledge action models and some highlights on the role of computer models. I have selected a few issues out of very many, and I will try to comment a bit on each slide, but I trust that you will read what I don't comment, because some of the points are made better in the tables, for example, so it really takes a bit of study. But I believe it's a good synthesis and a good start for you to understand this, and I'll be waiting for your feedback. Let me start with this first slide on adaptation, because in one of the live meetings that we had, we discussed a bit also the relation between adaptation and risks, or how might we define adaptation in terms of risks so that it's something better understood by people in both Europe and North America and in the rest of the world. This diagram shows a space of option that exists between what you notice as acceptable risks in blue and intolerable risks in red. This is basically your space of options. If you remember, we have talked about the option space generated by innovation. This is a space of option that you have within a given context. So the two things are related, and depending on the project that you are working on, you will make the connection. However, what it is important is that in both cases, and if you look at the limits here, the blue and the red lines, this space of options might be, big enough, have some space of movement, or not very large. So your concern should be how big it is and whether you can enlarge it or not. Risk-based approaches to managing social limits to adaptation, it's a good start. In the next slide, I want to give an example of knowledge action models. Here it's about the overall mental models used by wine grape growers in California during their projects related to sustainable agriculture. In this case, the knowledge action models actually mean the mental models and how they connect different concepts in or during their practice. In this diagram, you see clustered a lot of concepts. So what this means is basically a network of sustainability concepts in which the concepts are the nodes, and you see the connections, and these connections are made by the researcher during the interviews in the study, so that when a farmer defines sustainability for himself, they mention different concepts. Then when you make the statistical treatment of that, you have a picture of what that farmer understands in his concrete terms from sustainability and related to climate and all that, and what the community in general understands out of that. So that's one example. In the next slide, I'm trying to clarify a bit, or rely on the work of some colleagues, to clarify different perspectives that these practitioners may have. And what is important is that there are different worldviews across the human population and professionals, and these worldviews also correspond to different management styles. The researcher identified three major worldviews plus one: hierarchist, individualist, egalitarian, and fatalist. Why these four? Because you will see that people make their choices and explain their actions in a coherent way. They have some issues and some concepts that they use constantly, and you can identify those. Now, you see the hierarchist model. I let you study the table, I'm just making some highlights. Is very much based on regulation, because it starts from the presumption that human nature is sinful. Okay, people will always try to cheat, so you need regulation. That's the worldview and management style of a hierarchist perspective. The individualist one says, okay, human nature is self-seeking, meaning that each one should take care of himself or herself, and things should be done based on competition. The better products, the better project should win. And this is more adaptive and incorporates more freedom. An egalitarian one perspective, it's a bit contrary to the hierarchist perspective. It's like they say, or they believe, people are born good and malleable, so they should cooperate. And it's very preventive and all that. Now, these are the main three ones, and each of us is in a triangle in between these three. You will see in the next slide. There is the fourth one, which is the fatalist, which is basically not really having, it's not really a perspective, it's more like just being there too, so I don't know what to do. It's more coping with the situation, and their worldview is that, okay, people are unreliable, so this is why it is called fatalist. Okay. So, also in terms of incentives for problem solving, you'll see that the fatalist has no preference, doesn't care. Okay, it's the most sad one, not really a perspective. Then for the other ones, hierarchists will prefer governmental regulation. This is what incentivizes them to solve some problems. For the individualist, it's competition, market-based. So yeah, let's generate products and markets and services on the market, solve some problems there. And for the egalitarian perspective, is purely through communication and dialogue based. Now, if you represent this on a triangle, like I said, you see, for example, this slide, that one triangle is dedicated to the evolution of two individuals along a project, at the beginning and later in the project, and of two teams in the project. And you see that each of them, at the beginning, they were placed somewhere with a dotted figure, dotted line figure, somewhere more extreme or more central on this space. And then they moved, after they interacted with others in the project, they learned, and they, by doing stuff, and they changed a bit their perspective. They moved in this space. Now here I just want to highlight the fact that you learn things by doing, so learning by doing, but also this learning is part of making a project a success. So learning is part of doing, doing by learning. Both of them are actually true. This is a recent study actually, and I even talked personally to Meryl van der Waal, the author, the first author of this study, and that is a very good approach, and I encourage you to even read this paper. You can find it in Google Scholar. Now, you see teams management, so that we take care of our resources, but when will people cooperate and why? What is happening there? Are there any theories? Where they are, and I'm trying to summarize it here very briefly and quickly. And I'm using Twitter as a focal point to make this point. Now, Twitter is a very dynamic platform for online interaction. and it combines speed and flexibility, concisiveness, and thorough information, because they give links to films, articles, and so on. So it's really a dynamic network for each individual from where you can learn a lot. And there is even this expression, many of you may already know it, the personal learning network. When I followed somebody, I received, for example, a direct message: thank you for becoming part of my personal learning network. I like this expression very much, because Twitter is exactly this, and it's very useful. Now, about cooperation. You have to know that in normal situation, two individuals find themselves always in a prisoner's dilemma. And this means that these two individuals might not cooperate, even when it is in their interest of both of them to cooperate. If they cooperate, they will gain, let's say, $100. If they don't cooperate, they gain only $20. But they are sure of that sometimes. So they will choose something that is more immediate, even if it is less, which is a very bad decision. But this is what happens. Why? Because there is not enough trust between those individuals. So the trust is being built through social evolution, through social innovations, like tools, interactions, projects, by which basically different steps are conquered by one by these individuals. So the trust is being built. So more and more people will cooperate, so the overall benefit will be higher in time through this process of social evolution through learning. Now, in some situations, different individuals or different organizations or different groups, countries, even if you want, may find themselves in situation of having an interest to compete, or they have to compete for some issues, but in some other issues they have a big interest to cooperate. So there is this mixed situation of competition. Competition plus cooperation gives competition. And big companies very often are in this situation with each other. They compete for some segment of the market, but in another segment or another solution or another project, they're actually partners. So it's just a matter of negotiating. Like they say in life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. So better go up on this learning curve and social evolution. A last point that I'd like to make is that sometimes organizations and individuals don't learn because of differences in their mindsets. And studies have shown that there are two major mindsets. One is fixed and one is learning. So fixed mindset and learning mindset. What this means is that in some cultures or in some individuals believe that, okay, my intelligence and my capacity in general are given. Genetic, or it's just given, I cannot change it. So I start from there. I don't try to improve myself, because what I have. Point. It's the fixed mindset. In other cultures, there is a learning mindset in which they say, okay, I have certain capacities, inborn capacities, but I can improve those. And I will just go up the learning curve and improve my capacity to resolve things. And these are the ones that are learning. And usually these are the ones that are winning too. In some situations, this mindset can be changed by self-discovery, by advancement on motivation, by interaction with others, or not. It depends on a combination of context and personal decisions. But in a world of adaptation, the learning mindset is necessary. I guess that is the main point. A bit more on social media. I show here in this slide a graph from a study, some conclusions from a study, that included Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. And the interesting point that I found here is that on some social medias, people are more likely to click on links to study more than on others. For example, on Twitter they would, if they have the time, of course, and depending on their priorities, but they would click to learn stuff there. On Facebook, not so much, because on Facebook, most of the people with which they are linked are family, friends, so it's more for, let's say, relaxation, family interaction, not so much for learning and business, as it seems statistically. I'll let you read from the slide. And the Twitter seems to be a good trade-off between flexibility and information. What else? And the information that gets on this social media actually has an influence on the markets themselves, on the prices of stuff. For example, the prices of oil, which in the end means the prices of energy or different stuff that actually affect our daily life. So these are part of our life. This is basically man-machine interaction, and we better learn how to use those for the good, not just submit to the negative sides of it.